Hey folks, it's a man of Manetheren here. I'm here to talk about a book that I just finished reading because I watched the first two seasons of The Witcher, when as they came out, and my wife and I really enjoyed them. Um, and after this past season, hearing some of the noise in the background, I was interested to read them to see, okay, what are the differences and how does this, are they faithful adaptations? Does this change my perspective on the show? That sort of thing. So, I just finished the first book, The Last Wish. And so I'm going to do a book to TV comparison here. So, um, the book it's a very good anthology book. It just gives six little short stories of adventures that Geralt, the Witcher, went on. And these are the basis of his portion of the first five episodes of season one and the first episode of season two. Um, so so we'll just go story by story here. These six shorts are stories that the Witcher is telling, uh, basically a healer, or the healers during a stay that he was having at the Temple of Melitelli after, I guess, an adventure that he had needed to recover from. And so the first book, or the first little story, is called The Witcher. And we find in the show, this is season one, episode three. By the way, spoilers for the book and a little bit of spoilers for the television show. So, in this episode, and I'm just going to hit change points, I'm not going to go into the story a whole lot. The TV show has this mage named Triss. Well, she's there in the TV show, but she's not in the the, the book at all, much less the story. So I'm sure that she was put in here for the purposes of when she makes her introduction in episode 7, that it's not some kind of, drop, awkward drop in there. I'm sure that might have been the thinking behind that. Um, but as a result, there's a limitation to the back and forth that he has with um, uh, the Fortes. And it was actually deeper. And this conversation that the two of them have in the book, you really begin to understand very quickly that Geralt is incredibly perceptive. He's good at what he does. And so your estimation of Geralt immediately starts at this high level. Like he's able to go into situations and figure out what uh, what is going on. And seeing as this is the first story, you you know didn't really know outside of the TV show that what a awesome fighter he is. But as from the book perspective, you're going in kind of blind. But overall, the story doesn't have a whole lot of departure in the TV show. So, that's fairly even outside of the addition of Triss. Then we get to the second story, A Grain of Truth. And this is actually the first episode of season two. So we get to this. Ciri's not a part of this story at all. So in the show, the interactions that she has with each of the characters doesn't exist. So those were additions to this. And the other addition to the story for Geralt was that he didn't actually know in the book. He didn't know Nivellen. And so, the creature that's trying to develop or trick Ciri, that was added. But with the addition of the part of the storyline that Geralt and Nivellen go way back before Nivellen became the Boar Man, didn't exist. So it was Geralt meets this stranger who looks like a monster, but Geralt has to get into conversation with him back and forth to figure out that no, this guy is just cursed. He's not a monster. And so again, you're hit with Geralt knows what he's doing. He doesn't just act on whims, really, for the most part. He assesses situations, does it very well, and he's very perceptive. It's top notch from him. And when you fall back on, oh, I know this guy, we go way back, then it minimizes, hey, this Witcher, you can't get one by this guy. Um, the next story is The Lesser Evil. This is actually the first episode of the series. Um, and it's missing several village characters, a few village characters from the book. The conversation between Geralt and Stregobor, the mage, is clear in the book. And once again, they've never met actually in the book. So this is the first time they meet. And so once again, even though Geralt is wary um, of Stregobor because he's a mage, he still has to get to know how Stregobor operates. And so once again, perception. You know, Geralt knows how to dig out information and basically says, "No, I'm not choosing it." And then the line from the show was actually in the book. He's like, lesser evil, middling, greater, it's all the same. Um, so and then you get to the character Renfree, and as a character, I thought they did pretty well with her. But her deception of Geralt in the book is at another level. Um, it's minimized in parts, because you've taken away some of the characters in the book, and so the settings have to change, and situations have to change slightly. And in the book, she deceives him completely to think that she's leaving. She doesn't go out sleep with him in the forest and what you think is kind of drugging him. Um, then he's late getting into town. There's a deception where Geralt wakes up and he's perfectly comfortable just going about his day before all of a sudden he realizes, uh-oh, something's up. And so Renfree's cunning is really highlighted well in the book, because she deceived Geralt, who so far through two and a half stories, at this point you're thinking, man, this guy is on it. And then, but she's able to deceive him. So her cunning is really almost completely removed from the show, unfortunately. Then we get to the next story, A Question of Price. And this is from season 1, episode 4. This is where we meet Queen Calanthe in the book. There's no Dandelion, and Dandelion's name in the show is Jaskier. They changed his name up, I guess, because if you actually literally translated his name from Polish, it would be Buttercup. I don't know. Um, Either way, his name in the book is Dandelion. I'll be referring to him as Dandelion. Um, Queen Calanthe in the show, you kind of get this sense of her in the show, like, oh, she wants to do good, but she's a queen, so she has to be kind of uh, just a wicked. There has to be a wicked side to her. Um, she's very unlikable in the book. Um, you know, there's no heart of gold aspect to her, in my opinion. She um, and also the this episode in the TV show had a whole bunch of you know man hate patriarchal crap in it. Wasn't in the book at all, thankfully. They added that for the show, and that kind of takes you out of it a bit. Um, but Calanthe actually invited Geralt to the the party. It wasn't him just showing up incognito because of Dandelion's invite. um, and then the other thing is Princess Pavetta's power was more chaotic in the book. She almost actually destroyed the room, including the walls, and bringing it in or out, blowing it out. Um, so it just seemed like there was a lot more at risk in the book. It wasn't just her screaming once and that created a wind tunnel for her to talk with Urcheon. Um, and keep everybody else away. It was her screaming, and she lost control of herself. And so it took Mousak and the Witcher to combine their efforts to contain the situation, and they barely did so. So, um, let's see here. Then we get to the edge of the world, and that's the second episode of the first season. And this is actually the story where we meet Dandelion. Um, and we also meet a character called Queen of the Fields. And she's not in the show at all. And that's a shame because there's this mystery about her that it's a short little kind of like who is she type of thing. But when you see it, it's very intriguing. And there's an element of it that's still unresolved. I mean, I think that there's probably something potentially in the future books that I may see her again in the books, but we'll see. But because she's not in there, and because the villagers are playing absolutely no role in, you know, then there becomes, the storyline is that Geralt talks his way out of things with the elves and the Sylvan. Um, and it doesn't happen that way. Geralt can't talk his way out of it because the elves are in a position where they see absolutely no way around it. They have to kill Dandelion and Geralt so that they can keep their way of life going. And they don't have options, at least from their perspective. The Queen of the Fields plays a role where she's the one that comes in and resolves the situation. And it's actually a pretty satisfying resolution rather than all of a sudden the elves have a change of heart and because of what Geralt was willing to sacrifice with himself. And there you go. So that episode was kind of unsatisfying as in a resolution. The last story in the book is called The Last Wish, and this is episode 5. And this is where we meet Yennefer. Um, the beginning of the episode on the television show, you see Dandelion just walking down the road, and all of a sudden he sees uh, the Witcher casting a net into this pond. He's like, "Oh, Geralt." Didn't happen that way. They were already traveling together. So I don't know why you add this little bit of line because this whole thing of, "Oh, look who it is." It just it's kind of lazy writing. It's like, "Oh, we're going to have a matter of convenience here." And a lot of shows do this, and it's starting to grate on my nerves when I see it because it's like, you want to have the two characters together, then, have them traveling together like they were in the book. What's the big deal? Um, you know, and they were fishing. They weren't casting a net in for a gin that just so happens to be in there, but you don't know how Geralt knows about it. It just happens. They were fishing. And so Geralt wasn't unable to sleep. He wasn't being impacted by him kind of forsaking this law of surprise that was promised to him. So it's they're trying to get a fish. That doesn't work out, but one of their lines snags this bottle with the gin in it, and that's how they happen upon this whole situation. As a result, they go into Rind, the little town, and you know, there's a lot of interesting storytelling there between the townspeople and the hierarchy structure there. You know, you get a sense of all the authority behind everything. Then when Geralt goes to meet Yennefer, in the show, he walks through an orgy scene. There's no orgy scene, thankfully. Um, and to be honest, the show didn't need an orgy scene. Um, you pop it on the previews and it catches the eye, and everybody then, oh, there's nudity and all sorts of naughty bits going on, so I want to watch that show. It's not needed. They try they put it out there to, I guess, show how good Yennefer is with her magical abilities. Well, when you know what you're about to present in the episode, Yennefer's mental and magical abilities are showcased, and you don't need this extra little scene in there. And that scene, you know, was what, if, 2 or 3 minutes that you could have saved and developed other things with. And then also at the end of the episode, Geralt's last wish on the TV show is made in a corner, and um, and Yennefer doesn't know what it is. And then that sets up some drama for the in the next episode where they end up, uh, getting mad at each other, and Yennefer's cuts ties and done. So there's a bit of drama there. Well, in the book, she knows because he's holding on to her so that the djinn doesn't get her and kill her. And he makes this wish. And so she knows the wish. And it actually changes her um, quite a bit. She actually becomes concerned for Geralt and is worried for him because, as she says, he's condemned himself to her with that wish. And so, the change in that, you know, yeah, it adds drama for the next situation, but you don't really need that kind of, you don't need relationship drama uh, for the most part in stories. And, there's some that's going to, some types of relationship drama that's going to naturally happen in good written stories. You don't need to change that up to create it. And so, yeah, you know. So, um, the book is very good. And my thoughts on season one are still enjoyable. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it again, even on another watch through. It's a good season. The storytelling's a bit wonky because they mess with the timeline stuff. Now, but that doesn't bother me so much. Um, but a lot of the changes that I noticed from the books, as usual, they're not needed for the most part. I can see where you have maybe budget concerns, so you cut characters out that are kind of side characters for the most part. Um, but some of the script writing, however, didn't need the shifting that it took, and so those things were kind of disappointing. Thankfully, I don't think that the writing was or the changes were too detrimental to the characters. I think they've minimized the Witcher down in terms of what his mental abilities are. He's really a sharp character, and I think that got downplayed a bit. Um, but most of the changes really did more harm to the storytelling than it did to the characters. Ultimately, the show does need more Witcher. Season one needed more Witcher. Season two definitely needed more Witcher. Um, because without the Witcher, the scenes tended to be pretty boring. Um, and the character changes that I've mentioned, they make the characters smaller. You know, Renfree was minimized quite a bit. Obviously, The Witcher, and I think Yennefer, to some extent, was also pretty well minimized from the book anyway. So they're just evidences of storytelling changes that were either bad or lazy. Um, you know, and I say this even enjoying the show. So um, I'm on into the next book, um, which is another anthology book, and so it's you know they're entertaining so far. Um, so what do y'all think? You know, what did you think in terms of the comparison? I didn't want to concentrate on bashing the show really and everything. I just kind of wanted to notate the differences that I saw between two mediums that I thought were pretty good. Um, I'm anticipating a little more frustration with the second season, from what I'm hearing. But let me know. Did I miss something that you guys clearly saw from the Last Wish? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know. Drop a note in the bucket down below, and perhaps we'll see each other again. Che Nagar, Nivron, Taishar Manetherin.